Welcome. The hallway is quiet here, the kind of quiet that seems to recognize you. Take a breath. Close the door softly behind you. This space is for those who've learned that some luxuries come with locks you can't see. Tonight's theme is the dark truth behind the sugar life when gifts, trips, and promises become callers, and comfort hides the cost. You'll hear about dates that never really ended, gifts that tracked their owners, contracts that felt more like cages, and islands where the guest list didn't add up. These aren't jump scares, they're slow turns of a key you didn't know was in your back pocket. The fear here is simple. What happens when safety, rent, and status belong to someone else's mood? What makes this collection different is that we don't glamorize it. We read the fine print out loud. By the end, you may check your doors, your bank alerts, and the name that your reflection answers to. Most people watch these nights and forget to subscribe. If this kind of late-hour honesty keeps you company, consider pressing it before the lights dim. What time is it where you are? Where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments so I know who's still awake. You might want to leave a light on. Here are tonight's encounters. The second I tried to unclasp the bracelet, it tightened. Not enough to hurt, but enough to make my breath catch. I froze in the middle of my apartment, the faint metallic scent of my skin mixing with expensive perfume. The thing shimmered under the lamplight, gold and flawless, except for that tiny, hidden seam that refused to open no matter how hard I pushed. It wasn't even mine. He'd given it to me last week, my sugar daddy, though I hated calling him that. It's custom, he'd said with a smile, sliding it onto my wrist himself. It only comes off when I say so. I thought he was being flirty. Now, I wasn't sure. The bracelet wasn't just jewelry. It hummed, faintly. I first noticed it the night after our third dinner. My wrist would buzz at random times, short, almost rhythmic vibrations, like a heartbeat. When I mentioned it to him over the phone, he said, "That's impossible. It doesn't do that." Then he laughed. "Maybe it's just happy to see you." That laugh still echoes in my head, dry, deliberate, rehearsed. Over the next few days, I started catching glimpses of the same black SUV parked across the street from my apartment. Always in a different spot, but always close enough to see the glint of the windshield. Once, when I came home late from a bartending shift, the headlights flicked on for half a second, then off again. That's when I tried to take the bracelet off for the first time. It was cold metal against warm skin, but it didn't feel natural anymore. The clasp wasn't a normal latch, it was smooth, almost sealed. When I pulled hard enough, the gold left faint red lines on my wrist. I slid a thin knife under it, trying to pry it open, but the blade snapped against the seam. The sound was so sharp that I flinched and dropped it. Seconds later, my phone buzzed. Him, don't do that. I stared at the message. I hadn't texted him. I hadn't posted anything. He knew. The bracelet's hum grew stronger over the next few nights. I could feel it when I tried to sleep, soft pulsing vibrations that matched my heartbeat. Sometimes it would buzz in little bursts whenever I walked to the window or touched the front door, like it knew what I was doing. I wrapped my wrist in a towel once and slammed the thing against the counter. It didn't leave a mark. It didn't even dent when I confronted him about it in person. He smiled like I'd said something cute. "You really think I'd hurt you?" he said, stirring his drink. "No," I lied, "but I can't get it off. It's weird." "It's not weird. It's commitment." He leaned closer. His cologne was strong, spicy, almost chemical. "You don't take off commitment." That's when I saw the faint outline of a small, curved symbol on the inner band, something like an engraving. It wasn't there before. It looked new, burned in, almost. When I got home that night, the buzzing didn't stop until dawn. The real fear started when I realized it was tracking me. I noticed it after my phone died while I was walking home. I cut through a side street, half drunk and tired, when I heard the faint click of footsteps behind me measured, echoing off the wet pavement. I turned around, but there was no one there. Then I felt the vibration against short, sharp pulses, like Morse code. I didn't know what it meant, but I started running. By the time I reached my building, a black car was idling near the curb. Its headlights flashed just once, before it rolled away. That night, I covered the bracelet with duct tape. 2 days later, I found a small box outside my door. No note, no return. Addressed just a sleek black jewelry case, tied with a silver ribbon. Inside was a second bracelet, identical. I threw it in the trash immediately. But the next morning it was back on my kitchen counter. Clean, shiny, like it had never touched the bin. I started noticing other things too. My TV would turn on by itself around 3 a.m., flickering between static and the local security camera channel. Always the same feed, my own building's front door, grainy and silent. Sometimes, when I looked closely, I could see a figure standing by the entrance. A man in a long coat, motionless, staring up at the second floor, my floor. The static would crackle louder when I tried to switch channels, as if the signal refused to let go. I called the police once. The officer on the phone asked if I had proof. When I mentioned the bracelet, he paused. Is it a model with GPS or tracking capabilities? I don't know, I said. He asked for the serial number. I told him it didn't have one. He asked for my name, my address, the man's name. When I said his name, Ethan crossed the line, went dead. No click, no goodbye, just static. That's when I started recording everything. My phone, my laptop, even an old GoPro I bought at a pawn shop. But each file I saved came back blank. The timestamp was there. The audio wasn't. Except one, it was just a few seconds. Long, my own voice whispering something I don't remember saying. He's right outside. I stopped going out, stopped working. My apartment became a box filled with shadows and screen light. Even in silence, I could feel it, the pulse of the bracelet sinking with my heartbeat. Faster when I was scared, slower when I tried to calm down. Then, one night, I woke up to the faint smell of smoke. Not fire, burning metal. My wrist was hot, the bracelet glowing faintly beneath the skin, like something alive. I screamed and tried to douse it under cold water, but the metal only darkened. The engraving now clearer, deeper. It wasn't a symbol anymore. It was a number. 12. The next morning I went back to his penthouse. I didn't even text first, I just showed up. The door was unlocked, the lights dim, music playing softly from somewhere deep inside. The smell of cologne was heavy, almost suffocating. Ethan, I called out, no answer. I walked past the marble foyer, my shoes echoing on the floor, and found a hallway lined with portraits. Each one showed a different woman, different hair, different eyes, but all wearing the same bracelet. Mine, I ran, but when I reached the door, it was locked. The music stopped. Then his voice came through the house speakers, calm and low. I told you, it only comes off when I say so. I don't remember how I got out. Maybe I didn't. The police found me a week later in a motel off Route 9, dehydrated and half-conscious. They said my wrist was bleeding where the bracelet used to be. The skin underneath was burned, but the metal was gone, vanished, like it had never existed. I told them everything. They looked up his name. There was no record of any Ethan Cross. No ID, no tax record, no property deed. The penthouse was empty when they checked. Every portrait wall blank. No music, no bracelet, no sign of forced entry. Just a faint imprint on the tabula perfect circle burned into the marble, still warm to the touch. I tried to move on. I changed my number. I moved cities. I even started wearing long sleeves to hide the scars. But sometimes, when I rest my arm on a metal surface, I can feel a faint vibration again. A low, steady pulse. It's never random. It's always 12 beats. 12. Pause. 12. Pause. Last night, I got a new message from an unknown number. You look beautiful in long sleeves. I'm staring at my wrist right now. There's no bracelet, no metal, just skin. But under the lamplight, if I tilt my arm just right, I can see the faint outline of a circle like it's waiting to be filled again. And I swear, I can still hear it hum. The elevator shouldn't have stopped on floor 4. I remember that part clearly, the way the numbers froze mid-glow, and the hum of the motor went silent, leaving me suspended somewhere between comfort and panic. He had told me his apartment was on the 45th. I pressed the button twice, then again, but nothing happened. The air felt thick, the soft perfume I'd sprayed earlier now sharp and chemical in the stale air. I tried to laugh it off. Another luxury high-rise glitch. Then the door slid open, smooth and soundless. I should have waited. I should have gone back down. The hallway was darker than it should have been. The walls were white, but the light made them look gray, like an old photograph. I stepped out because it felt like the elevator was breathing behind me, pushing air into my back. The carpet was plush, silent under my heels. There was only one door at the end of the hall. Black, glossy, gold handle. 47 etched into the plate. My phone buzzed just as I reached for the handle. Ethan, come up. I typed back. I'm already here, but the message wouldn't send. No bars, just that spinning little wheel of nothing. Inside, the air smelled expensive wine, oak, and something faintly floral, almost chemical. The place was massive. Polished marble, black furniture, dim amber lights, and mirrors, so many mirrors. Every wall had one, each reflecting another, like I'd stepped into an endless loop of myself. Ethan, I called out. My voice sounded too soft, swallowed by the room. No answer. Just the soft sound of a song playing somewhere deeper inside. A woman's voice, slow, echoing, foreign. I followed it through the open living space and into the dining area. The table was set, white cloth, silverware that probably costs more than my car. 4 plates, 4 glasses of wine already poured, but there were only 2 chairs. I stared at the place settings, each one with a little name card. Ava, Lena, Sophie, and me. My real name, in perfect handwriting. I heard the elevator doors close behind me. Too soft to be certain, but real enough to make the back of my neck tingle. I turned toward the mirrors. One of them flickered just slightly, like a TV. For half a second, I thought I saw someone else standing next to me in the reflection, a woman. But when I turned, there was only air and that faint hum again. Ethan. My voice cracked this time. From the hallway, a door creaked open. I could see part of it, a long corridor lined with art, all abstract, all red and black. Something about the shapes reminded me of fingerprints. Don't be shy, his voice finally came. .com/warm. It echoed through the space, like it belonged to the walls themselves. He appeared at the far end of the hall. Crisp black suit, no tie, sleeves rolled. He smiled like he'd been standing there the whole time, watching me. Sorry, elevator acts up sometimes. It stopped on 47, I said. This is for... I frowned. You said you lived on 45. He tilted his head. Did I? The way he said it, soft, amused, like a child teasing, made my chest tighten. He gestured toward the table. You're just in time. I sat because that's what you do when rich men tell you not to worry. You pretend you're not sweating, not shaking, not staring at the other glasses of wine that no one else is drinking. He poured more wine into mine, but I didn't touch it. The smell was sweet, almost syrupy. I like to entertain, he said. The city's full of ghosts. I invite a few to dinner now and then. I tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. Ghosts, huh? He smiled again, slower this time. They never leave. They like the mirrors. I looked around, half expecting him to be joking, but his face didn't move. That smile stayed fixed, polite, but empty. Behind him, One of the mirrors shimmered. I swear I saw someone blink in it. Not him, not me. Someone else. I stood up. I think I should go. Already. His tone didn't change, but his eyes did. Something sharp flickered behind them. You haven't even eaten. The air in the room thickened, like humidity after a storm. My bracelet, the one he'd given me last week, began to buzz faintly against my wrist. He noticed. Still wearing it. Good. What's in it? I asked. A tracker. He smiled wider, but didn't answer. He just gestured toward my seat again. I need to go, I said, my voice shaking now. I have work early. Sit. That single word hit like a command. The lights flickered, and for a second, the mirrors around us all went dark. When they came back on, there were people sitting at the table. 3 women. Perfect posture. Perfect faces, except their eyes weren't blinking. They looked waxy, like mannequins. One of them had a faint mark on her wrist, where a bracelet might have been. Do you like them? Ethan asked. My mouth went dry. What the hell is this? They used to be beautiful, he said quietly. Like you. I bolted for the elevator. My heels slid on the marble, my pulse hammering so hard it blurred my vision. The doors were closed. No buttons, no lights. Just polished metal reflecting me, and behind me, Ethan still standing by the table, watching. He didn't move. He just raised his glass. To commitment, he said. The mirrors flickered again. The 3 women turned their heads in unison, slow, mechanical. Their faces cracked, faint lines spreading across the surface like dry paint. And then, I heard the softest sound, a whisper, coming from the one nearest me. Don't let him touch you. The words barely reached my ears, before Ethan spoke again, his voice calm. They always talk too much near the end. I ran for the hallway. The lights dimmed as I moved, each step echoing louder than it should have. The air smelled like iron now, sharp and heavy. I tried door after door, all locked. When I turned back, Ethan was gone. The dining room was empty. The glasses were gone. The mirrors were blank. Only my chair remained, still pulled out, waiting. And then my phone buzzed. You forgot something. I looked down at my wrist. The bracelet was gone. I hadn't felt it fall off. But now, there was a faint, pink imprint where it had been shaped like a circle. Still warm to the touch, the elevator dinged. The sound echoed like a heartbeat in the silence. I ran toward it, slamming the button over and over until the door slid open. Inside was a woman, one I hadn't seen before. She was wearing my bracelet. Her skin looked pale, almost translucent. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. He said you'd join us, she whispered. The doors started to close. I lunged forward, slamming my hand against the frame to stop them, but the metal burned, actually burned. I screamed and fell back, and when I looked up again, the elevator was empty. No woman, no sound, just the faint echo of laughter. I don't remember leaving the building. Security said they found me outside barefoot, shaking, clutching my phone like a weapon. They didn't believe me when I told them what happened. No Ething in the system. No resident listed under 40-7. They said the tower only has 46 floors. That was 3 months ago. I've moved twice since then. Changed numbers. Changed cities. But last night, a new package showed up at my door. Inside, a bracelet. The same one, and a note, in the same perfect handwriting that spelled my name that night. Dinner's at 8. Don't be late. I can feel the metal warming against my skin again as I write this. I didn't put it on. I swear I didn't, but it's there now, tight, and I can hear faint music coming from somewhere inside my apartment. A woman's voice, soft and distant, singing that same foreign song. It sounds like it's coming from behind the mirror. The cabin lights flickered the second we hit the clouds. Not the kind of flicker you get from turbulence, but the kind that feels deliberate, slow, timed. like someone flipping a switch. I looked up from my seat, expecting the flight attendant to say something, but she was standing completely still, smiling, just frozen in place with that glossy, polite grin, like a mannequin waiting for a cue. That's when I realized something was wrong. Ethan had told me the trip would be a spontaneous getaway. I thought we were flying to the Maldives or maybe Monaco. He'd surprised me before: private dinners, designer gifts. Even that diamond bracelet I still couldn't remove no matter how hard I tried. But when I asked the pilot before takeoff where we were headed, he just said, "Wherever Mr. Cross says." Now, an hour later, we were above solid white clouds. No view, no stars, no sound except the steady hum of the engines. I checked my phone again. No signal. Not even WI-feed. Ethan sat across from me, legs crossed, sipping a drink that smelled faintly like smoke and honey. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring out the window at nothing. "Ethan," I said softly, "where are we going?" He smiled without turning his head. "Does it matter?" The air felt colder than before. It shouldn't have been. The cabin had vents near every seat, but the cold came from below, through the floor. I could feel it seeping through my heels. The flight attendant finally moved. She walked down the aisle in slow, measured steps, her shoes making no sound on the carpet. When she passed me, I caught the faint scent of bleach. Her hands were clasped so tight behind her back that her knuckles looked white. "Would you like more champagne, miss?" she asked. Her voice was calm, too calm. "No, I'm okay," I said, trying to sound casual. Her eyes flicked toward Ethan for just a second, not in a way that said permission, but more like fear. Then she walked to the back of the cabin and vanished through a small door near the galley. I waited for it to shut behind her, but it didn't. It just hung open a few inches. Behind it, I could swear I saw another face watching me. It was subtle, just a sliver of pale skin, the reflection of an eye in the metal hinge. I blinked, and it was gone. "Ethan," I said again, "where are we going?" He finally turned toward me, resting his chin on his hand. "You ask a lot of questions for someone who's getting everything she wants." He stood, cutting me off. His movements were too smooth, too quiet. The engines hummed louder for a second, as if reacting to him. "Come here," he said. I hesitated. "Why?" "I want to show you something." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a black envelope. Inside was a photograph, glossy, freshly printed. He held it out, and when I didn't move, he placed it on the table between us. It was a picture of me, sleeping. I recognized the room, my apartment, my own bed, the same gray sheets. The angle was from above, like a ceiling camera. My face looked peaceful, unaware. My stomach dropped. "Where did you get this?" He smiled faintly. "I told you, I like to take care of the people I invest in. There's a camera in my apartment." "Not anymore." His tone was casual, as if that was supposed to make me feel better. I started to stand, but the bracelet on my wrist vibrated, just once. Quick and sharp, like a warning. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Mr. Cross, we've reached optimal altitude." Ethan nodded, as if the pilot could see him. "Good. Maintain heading." I glanced toward the small window again. The sky outside looked wrong. The clouds didn't move. The horizon didn't shift. It felt like we were suspended in one endless layer of gray, neither climbing nor descending. "How long until we land?" I asked. He didn't answer. The flight attendant returned, but her face had changed. The smile was gone. Her eyes looked glassy, her skin too pale. She walked straight to Ethan and whispered something against his ear. He nodded once, then looked back at me. "She says you're cold," he said softly. "You should rest." "I'm fine. You're shaking." "I'm not." He raised his hand, and the bracelet buzzed again, harder this time. My vision blurred. The sound of the engines seemed to warp into a low rhythmic pulse, See, he said. It's designed to keep you calm. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember the warmth fading. When I opened my eyes, the lights were dimmed, and Ethan was gone. The seat across from me was empty. The table was clear. The champagne glass was shattered on the floor. I tried calling out, but my voice came out hoarse. The air smelled different now, metallic, like copper and burnt plastic. I looked toward the galley door. It was still half open. This time, I stood and walked toward it. Every step felt heavier, like gravity was off. My reflection followed me in the window, slightly delayed, half a second behind my movements. "Hello," I whispered. No answer. I pushed the galley door open. There were stairs. Tiny, narrow stairs leading down, like the kind in an old basement. They shouldn't have been there. We were on a private jet, not a double-decker plane, but they descended into darkness, lit faintly by a red glow from below. I told myself not to go down. Every instinct screamed to go back to my seat, to wait, to act normal. But the silence above was worse. I couldn't stay there alone with that hum in the walls, so I went down. The air changed as soon as I stepped off the last stair, heavy, humid, almost electric. The red light came from a long row of panels lining the walls, blinking in uneven patterns. There were more people down there, not alive, not moving. 6 reclining seats, each holding a person dressed in expensive clothes, women mostly, with perfect makeup, still smiles. Their skin looked waxy, stiff. Each of them wore the same bracelet. Mine. I reached toward the nearest one, shaking. Her eyes were open. The pupils were pinpoints, almost gone. A faint hum came from her wrist, matching mine. Then one of them twitched, a sharp, convulsive movement that made her head jerk slightly to the side. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. The hum grew louder, syncing with the engines above. The woman's lips moved barely, like she was whispering something through sealed teeth. I leaned closer, heart hammering. Her voice came out like a breath against glass. "Don't land." I ran. I don't even remember climbing the stairs. But suddenly I was back in the cabin, gasping. The lights were strobing now, faster. The plane rattled like something was shaking it from the outside. Ethan was sitting in his seat again, calm as ever. "Where were you?" he asked softly. "What the hell is that below deck?" He tilted his head. "Passengers, they're dead." "Not yet." He stood again, adjusting his cufflinks. "They thought I'd take them somewhere better. They wanted freedom, luxury, peace." He looked out the window. I gave them peace. I moved toward the cockpit door. "Tell the pilot to land, now." Ethan didn't even look at me. "We can't land." "Why?" He turned, his eyes dark, unfocused. "Because there's nowhere left to land." I burst into the cockpit. The pilot was slumped forward, hands still gripping the controls. His headset hung loose, a dark stain spreading down his collar. Outside, the sky was pure white, not clouds, just white. Endless, blinding, depthless white. The instruments on the panel flickered nonsense. The altimeter spun in circles. The radio crackled suddenly. A voice, low and distorted. "Maintain altitude. Maintain course." I yanked the pilot's headset off and shouted, "Who is this? Where are we going? Static?" Then a whisper, "You already arrived." I stumbled back into the cabin. Ethan was gone again. The flight attendant stood at the front now, hands folded, staring straight at me. "Please return to your seat," she said softly. "We need to land." She shook her head. "There is no destination." Her smile returned, slow and unnatural. "Mr. Cross will see you now." She stepped aside, revealing the galley door wide open. The red glow poured out, brighter now, pulsing like a heartbeat. I turned to run, but the floor vibrated beneath me. The bracelet on my wrist locked tight, digging into my skin. I screamed, pulling at it, but it burned cold, searing through flesh. The hum became a roar. The lights went red, and then I felt the plane tilt. For a moment, I thought we were descending. But when I looked out the window, the sky was still white, except now it was below us too. The world had inverted. We weren't falling. We were floating in place, caught in something that wasn't gravity anymore. I crawled to the emergency exit, clawing at the handle, but the metal shocked my hand. The bracelet pulsed again, and the hum in the floor turned rhythmic. 12 beats. Pause. 12 beats. Pause. Somewhere in the white outside, I thought I saw shapes moving. Human shapes. Faces pressing against the glass from the other side. Mouths open, eyes hollow. When I woke, the plane was silent. No lights. No hum. I was alone in the cabin. The champagne glass was gone. The galley door closed. Outside the window was only black. No stars, no clouds, no ground. My phone lay on the table, screen cracked but glowing faintly. A single notification. Location detected. Private Jet 12. The bracelet buzzed once, then loosened and fell into my lap. I picked it up, shaking, and saw my reflection in the window. For a split second, I thought it was just me. But then my reflection blinked a half-second too late, and behind it, another figure smiled back. The engine started again. The intercom clicked on. Ethan's voice filled the cabin, calm, cold, distant. Welcome back. The seatbelt sign blinked above my head. Remain seated. Maintain altitude. And the plane kept flying. The first thing I noticed was the silence. That heavy kind of silence that presses against your eardrums, like the whole room is listening to you breathe. The door had just clicked shut behind me, soft but final. I stood there in my heels, clutching my phone, staring at the apartment that Ethan had called our place. Everything inside was covered in velvet. The walls, the chairs, even the damn floor. Deep red and soft looking, like the inside of a jewelry box. There were no windows, just dim golden lamps that glowed from corners. The air smelled faintly of perfume and something sweet, almost chemical, like roses dipped in bleach. I told myself this was what money smelled like. Still, I couldn't shake that feeling like I'd just stepped into a padded room made for secrets. He was late, of course. Ethan was always late. Make yourself comfortable, his message had said. It's yours now. I ran my hand along the wall, and my fingers sank into the velvet. It felt warm. Too warm. I pulled my hand back quickly, wiping my palm on my skirt. The faint red fibers stuck to my skin like dust. There was music playing somewhere, a slow jazz loop that kept restarting every few minutes. Always at the same note. No windows, no TV, no clock. Just that music. Like time was stuck in the room with me. When I sat down on the couch, it breathed under me. I don't mean that. Figuratively, the cushion actually exhaled. A warm puff of air rose through the velvet, brushing my thighs. That's when I started to think maybe this wasn't a normal place. My phone had no signal. Wi-Fi showed connected, but no pages would load. The time on the screen was stuck at 8:03. I tried the door. Locked from the outside. No latch, no handle, just a blank brass panel where a knob should have been. I told myself not to panic. Ethan was rich, eccentric, and into weird designer stuff. Maybe this was just one of his art installations. He'd said he liked to make things feel immersive. But the temperature was wrong. It was warm, humid almost, like a greenhouse. My skin felt damp after just a few minutes. Then I noticed the sound, a faint creaking from inside the walls. I pressed my ear against one. It felt soft and warm, but I could hear something behind it, a slow, dragging sound, like fabric shifting over wood. When I stepped back, I realized the wall wasn't still. It pulsed, barely visible, but rhythmic, like a slow heartbeat. "Ethan," I said, my voice cracking. "This isn't funny." No answer. I turned toward the hallway. At the end, a door was slightly open. I hadn't seen it before, probably because the velvet on it blended perfectly with the walls. I didn't want to go near it. Every instinct screamed not to, but there was nowhere else to go. The door opened into what looked like a bedroom. A huge bed sat in the center, covered in matching red velvet sheets. The lamps were dimmer here, flickering like candlelight even though they weren't candles. Something was written on the wall, above the bed in gold letters. Be still, be soft, be mine. I felt sick reading it. There were no personal touches, no clothes, no books, no clutter. Just perfect emptiness, except for the faint indentations on the side of the mattress, as if someone had just gotten up, and then the scent hit me. Stronger here, sweet and rotting at once. That's when I saw the handprint, pressed into the wall, near the headboard. A full, perfect handprint, too large to be mind-smeared, faintly darker than the rest of the velvet, like the color had been rubbed the wrong way. I reached out, hesitated, then touched it. The fabric was sticky. The lights flickered again. The jazz music stuttered and restarted from the beginning. Then, I heard the creak behind me, something heavy shifting on the couch in the other room. I froze. Ethan, I whispered again, no answer. Just that faint dragging sound again. I stepped slowly into the hallway, every footstep muffled by the velvet floor. The air felt thicker now, like it was hard to breathe. The lamps hummed faintly, casting a dull red glow across the walls. And then I saw movement, just a shadow at first, long and slow, gliding across the far wall. Who's there? Still nothing. The shadow stopped moving. I turned toward it and realized there was no one there. Just the wall, breathing softly under the light. I ran to the door. No handle. I slammed my hands against it, screaming for help. It didn't even echo, just absorbed the sound completely. The room swallowed noise. I banged harder until my palms hurt. When I pulled them away, the velvet fibers stuck to my skin, again wet this time. That's when I noticed my reflection. Across the room, one of the wall panels was glossy, like polished metal. I caught my reflection in it, but it wasn't mirroring right. My face was there, but my mouth wasn't moving when I spoke. It was smiling instead. I stumbled back. The reflection leaned closer. Then the music stopped. Everything went silent. For a full minute, there was nothing, no hum, no breath, no sound. Then, from the far corner of the room, a voice whispered softly, "You fit so well here." It was Ethan's voice, but it didn't come from the door. It came from the wall itself. I pressed my hand against it, trembling. "Ethan, open the door." The velvet under my palm twitched, and then I felt it, something moving beneath the surface. Not like pipes or air vents. Something alive, sliding slowly past my hand, warm and smooth. I yanked my hand back, but the fabric clung to me, like suction. I pulled harder, until it finally released with a wet sound. My palm was bleeding. I backed away, shaking. The lights dimmed lower, and for a moment, I thought I saw outlines moving under the velvet shapes pressed into the walls, like bodies trying to push through from the other side. A face appeared for just a second, a woman's face. Her mouth was open in a silent scream, her eyes wide, trapped behind the fabric. I ran into the bedroom, slammed the door, and crawled under the bed like a terrified child. The floor was soft, warm, and smelled faintly of iron. Something brushed against my ankle. I jerked away and pulled my legs close. Then I heard it again, the voice, low and close now. "Be still, be soft, be mine." The air under the bed was stifling. I tried to stay quiet, but the sound of my breathing was deafening. My chest felt tight, like the air itself was pressing back. And then fingers. I swear I felt them. Cold fingertips brushing the back of my neck, threading through my hair. I screamed and rolled out from under the bed, stumbling to my feet. The door was open again. Ethan stood in the doorway, smiling, except it wasn't Ethan anymore. His skin looked pale, stretched, almost too smooth. His eyes were dull, unfocused. He held out his hand, the same one that had left the print on the wall. "You came back," he said softly. "I never, she." He stepped closer. "It's better when you don't fight." I turned to run, but the wall behind me pulsed outward, pushing me toward him. The air vibrated with a deep hum, and I realized the entire room was alive, breathing, feeding. He took another step. "You'll get used to it. They all do." The velvet wrapped around my ankle first, soft but strong. I tried to pull free, but it crawled higher, warm and wet, gripping tighter every second. I screamed until my throat hurt, clawing at the wall, but it swallowed the sound again. "Ethan, please." He just watched, expressionless, as the velvet climbed my legs, my waist, my arms. I could feel it pulse with every beat of my heart, sinking to me. Right before it reached my face, I looked up and saw the other shapes again. Faces in the wall, eyes open, watching. I understood then. They weren't just trapped. They were the apartment. Every inch of velvet had once been someone like me. The fabric covered my mouth. My scream died inside it. The scent of roses filled my lungs, heavy and choking. Then everything went dark. When I woke, I was standing in the middle of the room again. The walls were still. The air was calm. The bed was perfectly made. The music had restarted. Ethan was gone. My hands were clean. My skin unmarked. But the velvet felt different now, warmer when I touched it. Almost familiar. I walked to the wall and pressed my palm against it. It pulsed once, gently, like a heartbeat greeting mine. And then, from deep inside the fabric, I heard a whisper. "Welcome home." They say people disappear in this building sometimes. Girls who meet the wrong kind of man. I don't know if anyone ever looks for them, but if someone ever comes here again, if they walk into this velvet apartment and touch the walls, they'll feel us breathe back. The moment I signed it, the pen didn't just scratch paper. It felt like it carved something out of me. He smiled when I looked up. That kind of smile rich men use when they think they own you. "Now we're protected," he said softly, sliding the black folder back into his briefcase. "You'll have everything you want for the weekend, and I'll have you." I tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. The suite around us was quiet, too quiet. Even the air vents seemed to hum at a slower pace, like the whole place was holding its breath. That's when I realized he'd locked the door. The contract wasn't supposed to be a big deal, just a non-disclosure and companionship agreement. I'd read the first page at dinner, but he insisted the rest was standard legal jargon. He was charming, confident, the kind of man who could turn your doubt into guilt with a single look. Now, inside his penthouse overlooking downtown, the words standard and legal felt like jokes. He poured me another glass of wine, expensive and dark like blood under candlelight. "You're tense," he said. "You need to trust me." I nodded, even though my pulse was fluttering like a trapped bird. I told myself it was fine. It was just one weekend, but the walls were too thick. The windows didn't open. The curtains were nailed shut from the inside. By midnight, he was sitting in the armchair across from the bed, just watching me. I tried to make conversation, something normal. "You travel a lot." He smiled without blinking. "Not anymore." I laughed nervously. "Lucky you." His voice was calm, almost kind. "No, not lucky. Permanent." Something about the way he said permanent made the hairs rise on the back of my neck. When I excused myself to the bathroom, I noticed a camera light glowing red near the mirror. I told myself it was just a motion sensor, but when I leaned close, I saw the lens, small, perfect, aimed right at the bathtub. I looked up, there was another one in the ceiling vent. I came out of the bathroom pretending not to notice. He was gone. His drink sat untouched, condensation dripping down the side. The room felt heavier, like someone had turned the oxygen down. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. It didn't budge. There wasn't even a latch. Just a flat panel with a keycard reader, and my keycard was gone. That's when I heard it, the soft click of a camera repositioning. His voice came through the intercom, smooth as silk. "Leaving already? It's only been a few hours." "Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "this isn't funny. I'm not joking. You signed a contract. You said it was an end." He chuckled. "It's more than that. You're mine until Monday morning. After that, you're free." I ran to the window, yanked the curtain open. It wasn't a curtain at all. It was wallpaper. A solid wall behind thin fabric. No view. No city lights. My breath came in short bursts. "What is this place?" "The penthouse," he said simply. I spent the next hour tearing through drawers, closets, cabinets, nothing but empty boxes and bottles of designer water. Even the books on the shelves were fake, glued shut. Finally, I found a door near the kitchen that led to a narrow hallway. It looked wrong. Plain concrete walls, a metal floor. The air was colder here, metallic, sterile. I followed it until I reached another locked door with a keypad. The handle was stained, dark, sticky. When I touched it, my fingers came away red. I stumbled back, heart racing. And that's when I heard the faint hum of a generator kicking on. The lights above me flickered once, twice, then steadied, revealing something scratched into the wall, near the floor. "Weekend 3. Underneath it, another set of words written in a woman's shaky handwriting. Asterisk, asterisk, don't sign. Don't eat. Don't sleep. Asterisk, asterisk." I bolted back to the main room. Ethan was sitting on the couch now, like he'd been there all along. His smile hadn't changed, but his eyes looked different, flat, glassy, like a doll's. "Curiosity doesn't suit you," he said quietly. "What happened to the others?" I asked. He tilted his head, amused. "Others? The writing on the wall. Weekend 3. What is this?" He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "Every relationship has boundaries. You read them before you signed. I didn't read all of it." He smiled. "Exactly. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of the room with the light on, trying to stay alert. I thought about breaking one of the bottles to use as a weapon, but even the glass seemed fake, soft plastic, flexible. At 2:17 a.m., the intercom crackled again. His voice was a whisper this time. "Are you awake?" I didn't answer. He laughed softly. "Good. I hate when they sleep." My stomach dropped. I must have blacked out at some point because when I opened my eyes, the room was darker, colder. The lamps were off. Only the red glow from the cameras lit the corners. Something rustled near the bathroom. I sat up fast. "Ethan." No response. Just the soft padding of bare feet against carpet. I grabbed my phone, dead, completely drained. "Ethan, stop." The footsteps moved closer. I backed against the wall, eyes wide, scanning the darkness. Then I saw her. A woman, or what was left of one, crouched by the bathroom door. Her skin was pale, bruised, like she hadn't seen sunlight in months. Her hair hung in damp clumps, and around her wrist was the same bracelet Ethan had given me. She stared at me with wide, shaking eyes. "You have to leave," she whispered. "I can't. The door's locked." Her head jerked toward the ceiling. He listens. And then, just as suddenly, she crawled backward into the dark bathroom and vanished. I ran to the door again, pounding with both fists, until my skin split. "Help! Somebody help me!" The intercom clicked. "Loud tonight," Ethan said softly. "You'll disturb the others." "What others?" I screamed. He didn't answer. Just static. Then, faintly, through the noise, "You shouldn't have eaten." My stomach twisted violently. I thought about the dinner, the steak, the wine, the metallic aftertaste I'd tried to ignore. I stumbled to the bathroom and vomited into the sink until my throat burned. When I looked up, the mirror was fogging, not from steam, but from the inside, I wiped it with my sleeve. The reflection didn't match me. In the glass, I was sitting on the bed, smiling. I turned around. The bed was empty. The power went out around dawn. I sat by the locked door, trying to keep calm in the dim red light of the cameras. Every sound made me jump. The hum of air vents, the faint creak of the floor above. At one point, I heard something slide across the carpet near the couch. I looked over. A small envelope sat there now, perfectly centered. My name was written on it. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single page torn from the contract, my signature at the bottom. Above it, in neat, black type, failure to comply will result in termination of agreement and subject. And under that, written in blue ink, a note that wasn't typed at all. Asterisk, asterisk, weekend 4 starts at midnight. Asterisk, asterisk. I spent the next hours searching for anything, vents, cracks, anything I could break. The ceiling panels were bolted tight. The bathroom window was sealed with frosted glass that didn't lead anywhere. At one point, I thought I heard knocking from behind the wall. 3 slow knocks, then silence, then 3 again. I knocked back. The wall pulsed beneath my knuckles, warm like skin. That's when I finally lost it. I screamed until my throat tore, clawing at the velvet wallpaper until my nails bled. Underneath the fabric was metal, cold, smooth metal, and etched into it, just barely visible, were dozens of names. Mine was the last one, by the time the clock on my phone flickered. Back to life, 11:59 p.m. The lights were already dimming again. The air grew heavier, thicker. I could hear movement outside the door this time. Slow footsteps. Too heavy to be Ethan's. Then the click of the keypad. The lock disengaged. The door swung open, and there he was, dressed in black again, holding another folder. Weekend 4, he said. Congratulations on renewal. I never agreed. He smiled. You didn't have to. Your contract auto-renews upon survival. I backed away, shaking my head. No, I want out. Impossible. He took another step forward. The process has already begun. Behind him, I could see something moving in the hallway. Shadows that weren't human, hunched figures dragging their feet, faces pale and stiff. The women. They shuffled closer, eyes dull, bracelets glowing faintly under the dim light. One of them, the one from the bathroom, looked right at me, mouthing something I couldn't hear. Ethan turned toward them with an almost tender smile. You see, they've accepted their roles. Peaceful, loyal. I ran past the couch, through the kitchen, toward the metal hallway. I didn't think I just moved. I slammed my shoulder into the keypad door at the end. The metal gave way just enough to squeeze through. Inside was a staircase leading down. The air smelled like rust and chemicals. I ran until my legs gave out, tumbling into a room filled with dim red lights and industrial noise. Rows of beds lined the walls, hospital beds, each with a woman strapped down, tubes in their arms, monitors humming quietly. Their faces were covered in smooth plastic masks. Each one had a bracelet on their wrist, glowing faintly blue. I turned to run back up the stairs, but Ethan was already there, calm, smiling. You shouldn't have seen this, he said softly. What are you doing to them? He tilted his head. Recycling. Every weekend has to end, doesn't it? He raised his hand, and the bracelet on my wrist tightened, cutting into skin. I screamed and tried to tear it off, but it fused, burning, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. The lights flickered, and for a second, everything went white. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the suite. Alone. The contract folder sat open on the table. Next to it, a new KEYCARD. And across the room, the door to the hallway stood slightly ajar. Outside, footsteps echoed softly. It's been 3 days. I'm still here. The cameras haven't moved. The food tray appears by the door every morning, like clockwork. I stopped trying to scream. I stopped eating too. Last night, I looked under the wallpaper again. My name is still there, but someone scratched a new word beside it. Retained. If anyone finds this, don't take the money. Don't sign anything. When he says weekend, he doesn't mean 2 days. He means forever. The first thing that made me nervous wasn't the man. It was the house. It was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, surgical quiet. The kind where your own breathing sounds like noise pollution. The kind where even the air feels expensive. The guy's name was Mason. Late 40s, maybe early 50s. Perfect teeth, heavy watch, polite smile that never touched his eyes. I met him through one of those sugar arrangement apps. He said he wanted someone discreet, someone real. I thought that meant dinner, maybe a trip, not whatever this was. He led me through his place barefoot, saying he didn't like shoes disrupting the floors. The marble was cold under my feet, slick like skin. Every sound, every heel click, every breath echoed forever. Relax, he said, smiling. You're safe here. He locked the door behind us. The living room looked like a museum. No TV, no photos, no clutter. Just black leather furniture, glass tables, and a single massive painting of a woman with no eyes. Her skin was gray. Her mouth was a perfect red circle. Mason saw me staring. Beautiful, isn't she? She was my first. He said it too casually. I forced a smile. Your first what? Arrangement. He laughed softly, but it didn't sound real. She was a lot like you. The temperature in the room felt off, too cold, but the air was thick. My skin prickled as if something invisible was touching me. He offered me wine. I said no. My hands shook anyway. We sat opposite each other, an entire glass table between us, and he started asking questions. Not about my interests or plans, about my body. How much do you weigh? How often do you sleep? Do you ever feel like you don't belong in your skin? I laughed awkwardly, trying to brush it off, but he was watching every micro expression I made. His pupils didn't even dilate. When I asked if I could use the bathroom, he said, of course, but didn't tell me where it was. Just smiled and gestured vaguely down the hall. The hallway lights were dim, motion censored. Every time I took a step, the lights ahead flickered on, and the ones behind went dark, closing in behind me. The air smelled faintly like antiseptic and something else, sweet, metallic, like sugar left too long in a wet spoon. There were 4 doors. 3 were locked. The 4th opened into a room. That wasn't a bathroom at all. It was filled with mannequins, at least. That's what I thought. They were sitting upright in chairs, dressed in silk robes and heels, wigs perfectly brushed. But their faces, their skin was too detailed. I stepped closer, and my stomach turned. They weren't mannequins. They were women, dead still, expressionless, skin waxed and preserved, posed like dolls. Each one had a faint mark around her wrist, a thin, healed scar. And every single one wore the same necklace, a small glass vial filled with what looked like crystallized sugar. I stumbled back and hit the wall, knocking something over a small silver box. It popped open when it hit the floor, spilling its contents across the tiles. Teeth. Tiny, perfect teeth. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw my reflection in the polished glass table near the doorway. Mascara smeared, eyes wide, mouth open but silent. Then I heard his voice. Curiosity ruins the experience. He was standing at the end of the hall, holding the wine glass I'd refused earlier. I froze. My brain couldn't process words anymore. He took a slow step closer, smiling softly like a parent approaching a scared child. They all looked once, he said. It's natural, but you weren't supposed to see that part. What is that part? I whispered. He tilted his head. The ones who stay forever. I tried to run past him, but he grabbed my wrist, mid-swing, cold fingers, too strong. almost mechanical. His grip tightened until I heard a faint pop in my wrist. I screamed. He didn't flinch. "Don't be dramatic," he said. "You signed the contract." "I didn't sign anything." "Oh, but you did." He smiled wider now, his teeth glinting in the low light. "When you accepted the terms on the app, digital consent is binding." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small glass vial, identical to the ones around the women's necks. Inside wasn't sugar. It was something white and crystalline, shifting faintly, like it was alive. He pressed it into my palm. "Your piece of forever." I don't remember how I got free. I think I bit him. I think I kicked him. I just remembered the sound of my own heartbeat drowning everything out as I sprinted back to the main room. The front door had no knob, just a metal keypad. My fingers slipped as I tried random numbers. The screen blinked red over and over. Behind me, I heard him walking slow, calm, deliberate. "You can't leave," he said. "No one ever leaves." I grabbed one of the heavy glass sculptures off the table and threw it at the keypad. The glass shattered, sparks flying. The lights flickered once, twice, then all at once. The power cut out. Darkness swallowed the room. For a few seconds, I couldn't hear anything. Then came the sound of his breathing. Not fast, not human, just steady, mechanical. Almost synced with the faint hum of something deeper in the walls. I crouched low, crawling toward what I hoped was the door. My fingers brushed cold marble, then the frame. I slammed my shoulder into it until something gave way. The door didn't open. It peeled. A thin layer of fake wood veneer cracked under my hand, revealing steel underneath. The whole door was metal disguised as wood grain. That's when I realized it wasn't a house. It was a facility, and I wasn't his first guest. The emergency lights kicked on, bathing the hallway in red. He was standing in the doorway again, but his face looked different in the light, too smooth, too symmetrical. His smile wasn't human anymore. "You really are perfect," he said softly. "The others spoiled too quickly." "What are you?" I whispered. He blinked slowly. "A collector." He stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw what was under his skin. Faint seams, tiny metallic joints near his temple. The edge of his jaw, glinting silver. The air behind him shimmered faintly, like heat waves. And through it, I could see shapes, outlines of other rooms, other women, hanging. I threw the vial he'd given me at him. It shattered against his chest, and he screamed, or glitched. I couldn't tell. The sound distorted, high-pitched, and electric, and for the first time, he stumbled backward. I bolted past him, running toward the side hallway again. I didn't care where it led. The walls flickered like static as I ran, images stuttering in the red light. Women laughing, posing, then their faces decaying, peeling, being replaced. The smell of chemicals burned my throat. Finally, I saw an exit sign glowing at the end. I ran so hard my vision blurred. My bare feet slipped on the metal floor. I slammed into the door with my shoulder, expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. It opened straight into the night. The cold air hit me like a slap. I fell onto wet grass, gulping oxygen like I'd been drowning. When I looked back, there was nothing behind me. No mansion, no lights. Just a long stretch of empty field and fog. By the time I reached the road, my wrist was purple and swollen. But I didn't stop running until I flagged down a trucker. He didn't ask questions. Just stared at me through the mirror the whole ride into town, like he was scared to blink. That was 6 months ago. The police said there was no property registered at that location. No house, no records of anyone named Mason in the area. They found my fingerprints on nothing, my DNA on nothing. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I smell it again, that sweet, chemical sugar smell. 2 nights ago, a package showed up at my door. No return address. Inside was a glass vial, sealed tight, filled with white crystals, and a note. Asterisk, asterisk, you're still under contract. The moment the yacht engine stopped, the silence felt wrong. Not peaceful, not calm, wrong. The air was still, the water flat and black around us. I could hear my own breath echo in the cabin like I was trapped inside something hollow. The crewman who'd been steering us didn't say a word. He just nodded toward the dock, where the island rose out of the mist like a dark bruise against the horizon. That was the moment I realized. I didn't even know the name of the island. Ethan had told me it was a private getaway, just for a few days. You'll love it, he'd said. No distractions, no noise, no phones, just nature and us. It had sounded perfect at the time. After all, that was what the app was for. I'd been broke, drowning in debt, and Ethan was charming. That kind of quiet rich that didn't need to brag. Dinner at expensive places, cash for treating yourself. A man who listened when no one else did. But now, standing at the edge of this nameless island with my suitcase and his hand pressed too tight around mine, something in me whispered that I shouldn't have come. The trees lining the beach were dark, thin, and too uniform, like they'd been planted, not grown. The air smelled faintly metallic, like rain that never fell. You're shaking, he said softly. Cold. I lied and nodded. He smiled and handed my suitcase to the same silent crewman, who carried it up a narrow dirt path that disappeared into the trees. The house appeared slowly, hidden behind thick palms and bamboo. It was massive, dark wood and glass, stretching over the hill like a mirage. No neighbors, no lights from other buildings, no sound of waves once we were inside. Just polished floors that clicked under my shoes and walls that absorbed every word. Welcome home, Ethan said, kissing my cheek. Home. The word made my stomach twist. That first night was strange in ways I couldn't explain. Dinner was already set when we arrived, plates steaming, candles flickering, even though I hadn't seen anyone cooking. There were 2 wine glasses on the table, but 3 plates. I pointed at the third one, laughing nervously. Expecting company? He smiled, without looking up from his food. No. We ate in silence. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the clicking of utensils against porcelain. When I finished, he reached across the table and brushed a speck of rice from my lip. His touch was too slow, too careful. You really are perfect, he whispered, later that night. When I walked past the dining room again, the third plate was gone, but there was still a wet circle on the tablecloth where the glass had been. I didn't sleep much. The bed was huge and soft, but I kept hearing something moving, faint steps on the floorboards outside the bedroom. Every time I sat up, the noise stopped. Once, I caught a glimpse of movement under the crack of the door, a shadow, long and thin, gliding silently across the hallway. When I woke up in the morning, the door was open. Ethan was already awake, sitting by the window in a white robe, sipping coffee like nothing was wrong. He looked at me like he'd been watching me sleep. Rough night, he asked. There was someone walking around, I said. I think one of the staff. He laughed quietly. There's no staff here, sweetheart. Just us. I froze, but the food prepared before we arrived. He smiled, but his eyes didn't match. You'll get used to it. The island looked different in daylight, colder, emptier. The trees leaned toward the house, like they were listening. No birds, no insects, no waves, even though we were surrounded by ocean. I walked down to the dock, hoping to see the yacht still there. It wasn't, just wet ropes and empty cleats. I didn't even hear it leave. When I went back to the house, Ethan was sitting at the piano, playing something slow and broken. It wasn't a song I recognized, but the sound filled the space in a way that made the silence worse. I asked him when we'd be heading back. He didn't answer. That afternoon, I tried to call for help. My phone had no service. No signal, nothing. No time, no battery percentage, no icons, just a black screen that wouldn't even turn off. I searched the house for landlines or Wi-Fi routers. Nothing. Not even a clock. Every time I thought about asking him, he'd appear silently, as if he'd been there the whole time, exploring. He asked once, leaning in the doorway. I was just looking for a charger. His smile stayed soft, but his voice dropped lower. You don't need your phone here. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the faint hint of metal and aftershave on his skin. Everything you need, he said, brushing my hair back, is right here. By the third day, I'd stopped pretending I wasn't scared. He was different now, quieter, colder, like he'd slipped into some role he didn't have to perform anymore. Sometimes he'd just stare, sitting perfectly still for long stretches of time. Once, I caught him standing in the hallway at 3 a.m., facing the wall. I thought he was asleep, but when I whispered his name, he turned slowly and smiled. I can hear you thinking, he said. Then he went back to the bed and lay down without another word. The next morning, I found a set of photos on the table. They were printed on thick, glossy paper, expensive studio-quality shots of the house, the living room, the piano, the dining table, and then I flipped one over and froze. It was me sleeping. I turned another. Me again, brushing my hair in the mirror, eating, walking down the hall. Each photo had a tiny number written on the back in black ink. Mine said 12. When I looked up, Ethan was watching me from the doorway. His expression was unreadable. Those aren't all of you, he said softly. He said it like it was normal, like that should have comforted me. When I demanded to know what he meant, he just smiled. There have been others, before you. The island remembers. I wanted to run, but where? There was nowhere to go. Just water and trees that didn't sound like trees when the wind moved through them. That night, I barricaded the bedroom door with a chair and didn't sleep at all. At some point, around dawn, I heard voices whispering outside the window. Too many to count. Too quiet to understand. I told myself it was wind, but when I looked out, there were shapes in the fog, faint silhouettes moving between the trees, just far enough that I couldn't see their faces. By morning, Ethan was gone. His bed was untouched. The house was still. I didn't waste time. I grabbed my bag, the photos, and ran toward the dock. The path felt longer this time, the trees closing in like they were moving closer together. The humidity made my clothes stick to my skin. My hair was wet with sweat and mist. When I reached the dock, I stopped. The yacht was back. For a second I thought I was saved, but the closer I got, the worse it felt. The deck was empty. The ropes were freshly tied, but there were no footprints. The cabin door hung open, swinging gently in the wind. I climbed aboard. The floor was damp, and the air smelled like something spoiled. Inside, there were plates on the counter, a half-empty bottle of wine, 2 glasses, and a third, half-filled. Just like the night we arrived, the wine was still red, still wet. Then I noticed the photos tacked to the cabin wall, the same photos I'd found earlier, except these had new ones added. Ones of me at the dock, right now, standing on the yacht, looking at the photos. That's when I heard him behind me, leaving so soon. I turned, heart pounding, but Ethan looked wrong. His clothes were damp, his skin pale, veins faintly blue beneath the surface. His eyes were sunken but still smiling. I stumbled backward, knocking the wine bottle to the floor. You left, I whispered. He tilted his head. I always do. I ran out of the cabin, off the boat, onto the dock, slipping on wet wood. I didn't stop until I hit the tree line. Behind me, the yacht engine roared to life. But when I turned, the dock was empty again. The forest was alive now. The air buzzed with low vibrations, like sound moving through the ground instead of the air. The shadows between the trees shifted as I ran. I didn't know where I was going, just away. The ground sloped upward, and I stumbled into a clearing I hadn't seen before. There was a stone archway in the middle of it, old, cracked, covered in moss. Beneath it was a plaque, carved deep into the rock. "To be chosen is to stay." Something shimmered beneath the arch, like heat, but colder. When I stepped closer, my reflection appeared in it. Except it wasn't my reflection, it was me, standing next to Ethan, smiling. I stumbled back, tripping over a route. When I looked up again, the image was gone, but Ethan was standing in its place. He looked almost sad. "It's better if you don't fight it," he said. "The island decides who it keeps. I'm not staying here. You already are." He reached out a hand, and I ran again, crashing through the trees until I burst back into the clearing near the house. The front door was open. The windows glowed faintly, even though the sun was high. Inside, the house looked different, cleaner, newer, like time had reset itself. On the dining table sat 3 plates, 3 glasses of wine, and across from mine, a photo, freshly printed. Me, standing in the forest, screaming. The last thing I remember clearly is grabbing the photo and running for the stairs. I could hear footsteps, dozens of them following me up, not just his. Whispers filled the house, women's voices, low and pleading, calling my name. When I reached the top, I slammed the bedroom door shut and crawled into the corner. The whispers grew louder, closer, like they were inside the walls. Then, silence. For a long time, nothing moved. I think I passed out. When I woke, the sun was setting again. The house was quiet, the furniture back in place, the air heavy and still. I walked downstairs slowly, gripping the railing to keep my hands from shaking. In the living room, Ethan was sitting at the piano again, playing the same broken melody. He looked up when I entered. "I was worried about you," he said. "You ran off." I didn't answer. On the wall behind him were rows of framed photos, dozens of women, different faces, different years, all smiling. And in the newest frame, still damp from the printer, was me. I'm writing this now from the small desk in the bedroom. The door is locked, though I don't know why I bother. There's no signal. The yacht never comes when I look for it. Ethan says, "I'll feel better in a few days." He says the others did. 2. Sometimes, when I look out the window, I can see them, faint figures moving between the trees, their shapes flickering like bad reception. They always look happy. He says the island keeps what it loves, and tonight, he's setting another plate at the table, for someone new. The first thing I noticed was the smell, sweet, powdery, faintly floral, like old perfume that never quite leaves the air. It hit me the moment he opened the door to the upstairs hallway. "This was her room," Ethan said quietly, gesturing toward the end of the corridor. The light from the chandelier flickered as if the house itself hesitated. I told him I didn't want to intrude, but he just smiled that calm, expensive smile. "It's fine. She's gone. You should see it. It'll help you understand me better." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't ask. I wish I had. The door creaked open like it hadn't been touched in years. The smell grew stronger, baby powder, lilac, something faintly metallic underneath. The room was spotless, not just clean, curated. Everything was pink and white, perfectly arranged. A canopy bed with lace curtains, stuffed animals lined in a perfect row on a shelf, a vanity mirror without a speck of dust. The strangest part was the air. It was cold, but heavy, like stepping into a museum where you're not supposed to breathe too loud. I turned to Ethan, but he was standing still in the doorway, his hand resting on the frame, his eyes glassy. "She was 9, he said softly. That's how old she was when." He didn't finish. I didn't know much about his daughter. He'd mentioned her once, a car accident, years ago. He never talked about her again, and I never pushed. You don't push men like him, not when they're rich enough to make you forget your rent, your job, your life. Still, something about the room felt wrong. It didn't feel sad. It felt preserved, like she hadn't left, like she was still waiting. He walked over to the vanity and ran a hand across the surface. She loved to brush her hair here, he said. His fingers brushed across a pink hairbrush lying neatly beside a porcelain jewelry box. Every morning, same song on the radio, same braid, same bow. His voice cracked a little on that last word, but he smiled again, forcing it. You'd have liked her. I nodded, even though I didn't know what to say. Then he looked at me through the mirror. You should try the brush. I laughed awkwardly. You're serious? He nodded slowly. It would mean something to me. I thought maybe he was grieving. Maybe this was his way of healing. So I sat at the vanity, trying to ignore how cold the seat was, and picked up the brush. It was heavier than I expected, and warm. I ran it through my hair once, and it snagged. Not on my tangles, on something sticky. When I looked at the bristles, they were dark. Something brown and dried clung between them. Ethan. He smiled faintly in the mirror. Good, you're doing it right? That night, I couldn't sleep. I was staying in the guest room down the hall, but I kept smelling the same powdery scent. I swore I'd shut the door to her room, but when I checked, it was cracked open just an inch. I closed it. An hour later, it was open again. By morning, I was ready to leave. I told him I wasn't feeling well, that I needed to get back to the city. He didn't argue, just poured me coffee, black and bitter. Did you dream? He asked. I hesitated. No. Why? He smiled. She likes when people dream. I didn't answer. As I reached for my phone, I noticed something new on the counter, a pink hair bow. I didn't bring it. I left that morning, but he called that night. Come back, he said. His voice was softer this time, pleading. You left something here. I didn't leave anything. Yes, you did. A pause. She misses you. The line went dead 2 days later. A package showed up at my apartment. No return address. Just my name, written in neat, looping handwriting that wasn't his. Inside was the pink hair bow, and beneath it, a photograph of me sitting at the vanity in his daughter's room, brushing my hair. The photo wasn't taken when he was standing there. It was taken from behind me. I didn't go back, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every night, I'd wake up smelling that faint floral scent. Once, I woke to the sound of a music box playing a slow, lullaby-like tune. It stopped the moment I turned on the light. Then, last week, I got another message. A voice memo this time. Ethan's voice, quiet, trembling. She's restless, he whispered. You made her happy, but now she's lonely again. She keeps asking for you. Then, faintly, in the background, a small voice. Please come back. I called him right away. No answer. The next day, I drove out to the house. The gates were open. The driveway was empty. The front door was unlocked. Inside, it smelled the same. Powder and dust and something sweet, rotting underneath. Ethan. No answer. The lights didn't work. I found candles in the kitchen drawer and lit one. The shadows danced against the walls as I made my way upstairs. The door to her room was wide open. Everything inside was untouched. Perfect again. The bed made, the dolls lined up, the hairbrush waiting on the vanity. But there was something new this time. A second photograph. Framed. It was Ethan, sitting on the edge of the bed. His head tilted down, his eyes closed. The photo was dated the day after I left, and next to it, on the nightstand, was another frame. A new one. Me. The candle flickered. I turned slowly toward the doorway. Ethan was standing there. He looked thinner, pale, his shirt half unbuttoned. His eyes were red. She's so happy you came back, he said softly. I took a step back. Ethan, what's going on? He smiled, tears streaming down his face. She needs a mother figure, someone kind, someone who understands her. You're perfect. She's gone, Ethan. His smile twitched. No, he whispered. She's not. He turned his head slightly, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. Then he said, she wants to brush your hair again. I ran down the stairs, through the front door, into the yard. My car was still there, but the keys weren't. When I looked back at the house, the upstairs light flicked on. Someone was standing in the window, small, silhouetted. She was brushing her hair. I left that night and didn't look back. I moved 2 states over, blocked every number, deleted every photo, sold everything I owned that reminded me of him. But the smell followed me, powder, lilac, that faint metallic sweetness. It lingers on my clothes, my pillow, even my skin. And every night, around 3 a.m., I wake to the sound of something brushing against the wall beside my bed, rhythmic, slow, like someone combing long hair. I finally went to throw out my old suitcase last week. It had been sitting in the closet since I left his house. I unzipped it to make sure it was empty, and froze. Inside, tucked neatly into the lining, was that same pink hair bow, and wrapped around it, a single strand of blonde hair. Not mine. I don't sleep anymore. Because sometimes, when I'm half awake, I can feel fingers moving through my hair, gentle, child's, tugging softly at the ends. And when I look in the mirror, there's always a pink bow sitting on my vanity. Even when I throw it away, even when I move it to another room, even when I burn it, it always comes back. And sometimes, when I catch my reflection late at night, I see another shape standing behind me, small, still, smiling faintly. She likes it when I brush my hair. She says it helps her sleep. And I think if I stop, she might wake up for real. The first time the black card declined, I laughed. Not out loud. Just a small, nervous breath that left my lips too fast. It was a sound that didn't belong in that store. The place was silent, except for the soft hum of refrigerated air and the steady tick of a wall clock. I stood at the self-checkout with my cart full of grocery stuff I never used to buy before him. Imported wine, wild-caught salmon, French butter that cost more than my rent. The machine beeped. Red text flashed. Transaction denied. I swiped again. Same message. Behind me, the cashier leaned on the counter and gave a tight smile. You want me to try it for you? I hesitated before handing it over. The card was matte black, heavy, unmarked except for a single silver number on the back. It didn't even have my name on it. Just the initials EK, he'd told me. It'll work anywhere. Don't worry about limits. Just don't use it after midnight. That had sounded like a joke at the time. Now at DIDN single quotes T. The cashier ran it through again. The machine beeped once, then twice, and the screen went blank. Guess the system froze, she said, frowning. The lights above us flickered. For a second, everything looked washed out, like the world had been drained of color. Then, just as suddenly, it all snapped back. When the screen restarted, the transaction had gone through. Total, $417.32 approved. Guess it worked after all, she said. But she wouldn't look at me when she said it. That night, I told Ethan what happened. He didn't seem surprised. We were sitting on his balcony overlooking the city. The kind of view that makes you forget how small you are. He was older, handsome in that slow, expensive way. The kind of man who never raised his voice because money already spoke for him. You used it after midnight, didn't you? He said. No, it was like 10:30. He sipped his drink. 10:30 here, maybe? What's that supposed to mean? He looked at me for a long time, like he was deciding whether to answer. Then he smiled. Time works differently with that card. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. For the first few weeks, the black card made my life easy. Rent, paid, clothes, charged. I even used it for groceries for my mom. Every purchase went through instantly. No limit, no questions. But after that night, weird things started happening. Small things at first. One morning, My phone showed a $6,000 charge at a restaurant in Milan. I hadn't left Los Angeles. When I called the number on the back of the card, a woman answered immediately. "Black account," she said. "There's a charge I didn't make. Location. It says Italy." The woman paused. I heard faint clicking, like someone typing with long nails. "That purchase was approved under your account. I wasn't in Italy." Another pause. "You are now? What?" Then the line went dead. After that, my location tag stopped working. My phone thought I was somewhere else every time I checked Berlin, Tokyo, Johannesburg, places I'd never been. Ethan said it was a glitch. "It happens," he told me, touching my wrist. "You have to let the system learn you." "The system?" He just smiled. "Don't worry. It knows what it's doing." That was the week I started seeing the strangers. The first one was at the cafe near my apartment. He wore a black suit and gloves, sitting 2 tables away, pretending to read a newspaper. But when I stood to leave, he did too. Same second, same motion. The next day, a woman in the grocery store followed me aisle to aisle, pretending to look at produce. Every time I turned, she turned too. She had the same blank expression as the man before. Their faces weren't wrong, just off, like they were built from memory, not photographs. And they always wore something black. Ethan started disappearing more often. No calls, no texts, just silence. But every time I thought about canceling the card, something in my chest clenched, like a pulse tightening around my heart. I tried using cash again once. My hands shook so bad I dropped the bills. That night, the card reappeared on my kitchen counter. I hadn't brought it home. The last normal day I remember was the day my account statement arrived. Not by email, hand-delivered. A black envelope, my name embossed in silver. Inside was a single sheet of thick paper. Black account summary purchaser, redacted. Total expenditure, infinity status, active balance, OWED. I flipped it over, half expecting a joke. But there was just one line handwritten in ink. Payment collected upon replacement. I called Ethan immediately. No answer. I left a dozen messages. That night, he showed up at my apartment. He looked terrible, pale, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His hands trembled as he poured himself a drink. "I need to talk to you about the card," he said. "I already canceled it." He laughed. It wasn't friendly. "You can't cancel it. That's not how it works." "Then how does it work?" He stared at me for a long time. "You use it, you spend. When you stop spending, it replaces you." I didn't understand. "What do you mean, replaces?" He didn't answer, just finished his drink, set the glass down, and said, "When they find you, don't run." He left after that. I haven't seen him since. The next morning, my reflection didn't look right. It moved a fraction too slow. The skin around my eyes seemed darker, hollow. I went to the bank with the card, desperate to return it, but the teller just blinked when I handed it over. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "This account doesn't exist." I raised my voice. "What are you talking about? It worked yesterday." She looked over my shoulder like someone was standing behind me. Then her face went white. "Ma'am," she whispered, "please leave, right now." I didn't turn around until I was outside. He was standing across the street, the man in the black suit. But this time, he wasn't pretending to read. He was staring straight at me. I walked fast. He matched my pace. Every turn, every corner, he followed. I ducked into a coffee shop, heart hammering, and when I looked out the window, he was gone. For a moment, I thought maybe it was over. Then the barista handed me my drink. "Here you go, miss. Already paid for." I froze. "By who?" She nodded toward the counter. The card was sitting there. That night I packed a bag. I left everything behind, the apartment, my phone, even my clothes. I drove until sunrise, until I was sure I'd left the city behind. But every gas station, every motel, Every diner someone had already paid for me. A man at a counter, a woman in a black coat, a child holding my photo, always smiling, always waiting. I threw the card into the ocean too. Nights ago, it was back in my wallet by morning. Now it started changing. The black surface isn't smooth anymore. It ripples faintly when I touch it, like skin. And when I hold it up to the light, I swear I can see faces shifting underneath. I don't know how many dots sometimes. When I wake up, I hear whispering from my dresser drawer, voices counting, telling me I'm next. I think I understand now what Ethan meant about replacement. Yesterday, I tried to buy something simpler, bottle of water. When I swiped the card, the screen didn't show a price, just 2 words, transfer in progress, and my reflection in the plastic panel flickered. For a second, I saw someone else staring back, not me. Her smile was too wide. Her skin was perfect. Her eyes were black. I can feel it getting closer now. Every time I close my eyes, I see them, the ones in black, lined up in an endless hallway, each holding a card, each with my face, waiting for their turn. I haven't left the motel in 2 days. My food appears on the table every morning, paid in full. The card sits on the nightstand beside me, humming softly, like it's breathing. If you ever see one, a black card with no name, no limit, don't touch it, don't take it. Don't even look at it too long, because once it learns your name, it doesn't forget. And when it decides to replace you, it doesn't ask permission. It's 12:03 a.m. now. The room is dark, except for the faint glow of the card. It's standing upright on the table, perfectly balanced, and through the reflection on its surface, I can see someone sitting on the bed behind me, smiling, holding another black card, whispering my name. The first thing that tipped me off was how he said my name, not asked for it, said it, like he already knew who I was. "Melissa," he said, smiling through the rearview mirror, before I'd even pulled the door shut. "I've been waiting for you." The way he said it wasn't friendly. It wasn't flirty. It was flat, calm, and certain, like he was confirming something he already understood. I tried to laugh it off, even though the back of my neck had started to prickle. "Yeah, traffic's been rough," I said, buckling in. He just smiled. "Oh, I know." The car smelled faintly like cologne and wet fabric. The kind of smell that doesn't belong in a car someone actually drives every day. The seats were spotless, almost too clean. No receipts, no gum wrappers, no dust on the dashboard. We hadn't been driving more than 2 minutes before. I noticed something else. His GPS wasn't on. Every Uber or Lyft driver I've ever been in has that little glowing map on their dash. That robotic voice telling them when to turn. His phone was on the mount, but dark. "You already know where I'm going?" I asked. He looked at me in the mirror again, those gray eyes not blinking. "Of course I do." At first I thought maybe he recognized me. I've worked in local news for a few years. Nothing major, but enough that people sometimes say, "Hey, aren't you that reporter?" So I smiled a little, playing along. "Oh, so you watch Channel 8? He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Your building's the one with the red door, right? Apartment 4B. My stomach dropped. I hadn't told him my address yet. The app just said, "Home." The car turned down a side street I didn't recognize. "I think you missed the turn." He didn't answer, just kept driving, one hand on the wheel, the other resting loosely on the gear shift. His posture didn't change. His expression didn't change. "Excuse me?" I said louder. "You missed the turn." He finally spoke, voice low and calm. "We're taking a better way." The main roads backed up. I glanced out the window. The streetlights were thinning. The houses were getting farther apart. "This doesn't look right," I said. "Can you just turn around, please?" He didn't answer. That's when I noticed a lock icon on the door was glowing red. "Hey." I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'll cancel the ride. Just pull over, okay? It's fine. I'll walk from here." "Nothing." He didn't speed up, didn't slow down, just stared straight ahead, his jaw tight now, like he was concentrating on something I couldn't see. "Stop the car," I snapped, hitting the window button, but it didn't move. Neither did the door handle when I tried it. He finally spoke again. "You shouldn't have gotten in." "What?" His eyes met mine in the mirror again. "They told me not to pick you up." I grabbed my phone. The screen was black, dead. I could have sworn it had been at 70% when I left work. I hit the power button over and over until my thumb hurt. Nothing. When I looked up, he was still watching me through the mirror. "Who told you?" I said. He smiled faintly. "You'll see." We passed under a bridge, and the sound changed quieter, like the air itself was thicker there. I realized we hadn't seen another car in nearly 10 minutes. The road wasn't even marked anymore, just wet asphalt reflecting our headlights. The smell of the car was stronger now, something metallic under the cologne, like pennies. I thought about grabbing the steering wheel, but the way he sat, so rigid, so sure, made me freeze. Instead, I reached into my bag, fumbling for the small knife I kept in the side pocket. It wasn't much, but it made me feel less helpless. He must have seen me move, because he said, "You don't need that." My fingers stopped cold. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. "Not me." The car slowed, turning onto a narrow dirt road. The headlights bounced off trees that leaned too close to the path. The sound of gravel under the tires was deafening. "Where are we going?" I said, my voice breaking. He didn't answer. I looked out the window and saw something pale through the tree's fabric, fluttering. No, not fabric. A shape, a woman, standing perfectly still at the tree line, her head tilted slightly, watching the car pass. When I blinked, she was gone. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. He didn't react. "They always wait near the edge," he said. I started pounding on the window. "Let me out. Do you hear me? Let me the fuck out." The car kept moving, deeper into the woods. Finally, it stopped in a clearing. The headlights cut across a small wooden house, or what used to be one. The paint was gone, the windows dark. The air outside looked thicker somehow, almost shimmering. He turned off the engine. I could hear my pulse in my ears. "Why are we here?" I said. He looked at me in the mirror one last time. "Because you asked for a ride home." Then he got out. The locks clicked open. For a few seconds, I just sat there, frozen. Then I shoved the door open and ran. The forest floor was slick with mud. Branches tore at my clothes, my hair. I didn't care. I just kept running until my lungs burned. I didn't stop until I couldn't hear the car anymore. When I finally turned around, the trees looked wrong, like they'd shifted while I was running. Every direction looked the same. And then I heard it, a car door closing. Not near me. Distant, echoing through the woods. But when I looked back the way I came, the car was gone. I don't know how long I wandered before I found the house again. It looked different this time. Lights glowed faintly through the windows, flickering like candles. I crept closer, my whole body shaking. Inside, the air shimmered with heat and dust. I could hear voices, quiet, like whispers, underwater. I peered through the window. There were photos all over the walls. Dozens of them, faces, women's single quotes, S faces. Each one looked like it had been printed from a phone, blurry. Some smiling, some scared. The one closest to the window made my stomach drop. It was me, taken from the back seat of a car. That's when I heard the crunch of footsteps behind me. I turned and saw the driver, standing at the edge of the trees. He wasn't smiling anymore. "I told you," he said quietly. "I wasn't supposed to pick you up." I backed away. "Who are they? What is this?" He looked toward the house. "They choose who gets collected. I just drive." "Collected for what?" He didn't answer, just reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small and black. A phone. He held it out to me. On the screen was a photo. My photo. taken right now. Through the window, from behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. Just the reflection of the house and the dark woods behind me. When I turned back, the driver was gone. The only sound left was the faint hum of an engine somewhere in the distance, fading slowly until it was swallowed by the trees. I don't know how long I stood there before I went inside. I shouldn't have, but I was freezing, terrified, out of options. The air inside the house was heavy and warm, smelling like burnt wood and something sweet, almost chemical. There was a table in the center of the room, covered in more photos, women again, each labeled in small black handwriting, drop-off confirmed next to mine. Written in the same hand were 2 words, pending transfer. I ran. I don't remember how I found the road again. Just that at some point headlights appeared behind me. A different car, this time a normal one, blindingly bright. A woman leaned out the window, shouting, "Do you need help?" I climbed in before she could finish asking. I was crying so hard I could barely speak. She just drove fast. Back toward the highway. When we hit the first gas station, I told her everything, every word. She stared at me quietly for a long time, before saying, "You're not the first one." "What?" She reached into her glove compartment and pulled out a stack of paper. Missing person flyers, all women, all my age. Then she looked at me and said, "He used to drive for me." I got out of her car and called the police. They searched the woods, the house, everything. They said they didn't find any photos, no car, no trace of a driver registered under his name. They said I must have been mistaken, but when I got home that night, there was something waiting on my doorstep, a single photograph. Me, sitting in the back seat of that car, and written on the back, in the same handwriting I'd seen on that table, "Transfer complete." That was 3 weeks ago. Every night since, I wake up to the sound of an engine idling outside my apartment. When I look out the window, there's always a black car parked under the streetlight. Sometimes the headlights are on, sometimes they're not, but the rear door is always open, waiting. The first thing that made me uneasy wasn't the house. It was the silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just sit around you. It waits. The Uber dropped me at the gate and sped off before I'd even closed the door. His taillights vanished down the empty road, leaving nothing but the faint chirp of cicadas and the low hum of crickets that seemed to fade as I got closer to the mansion. It sat on the hill like something watching the valley. Huge dark windows, a driveway that curved forever. Every light in the house was on, not warm yellow light, but cold, white, hospital light. Ethan had texted me the address an hour ago. Dinner tonight. Just us. Wear something nice. He'd said us, but that word felt wrong now. By the time I reached the front door, my heels were damp from the dew. The door opened before I could even knock. A man in a black suit stood there, tall, silent, his face unreadable. Not Ethan. Not anyone I recognized. "Miss Claire," he said, voice flat. I nodded. He didn't move aside, just turned and started walking down a hallway, expecting me to follow. The air inside was colder than outside, heavy with the smell of bleach and lavender. The floors were polished stone, smooth under my shoes. My reflection followed me across the tiles, warped by the light from the chandeliers above. We passed room after room, each one spotless, perfect, like no one had ever really lived there. No furniture out of place, no photos on the walls. The only sound was the soft buzz of the lights and my own footsteps. I finally asked, "Where's Ethan?" The man didn't answer. He just stopped at the end of the hall and opened the door. "Mr. Kane is waiting for you inside." The dining room was enormous. A single long table stretched down the middle, covered in white linen and candles that flickered weakly under the harsh ceiling light. Ethan sat at the far end, alone. He smiled when he saw me, but it wasn't the kind of smile that reached his eyes. "Claire," he said, his voice soft, almost relieved. You came. I tried to laugh. You invited me to dinner. Why wouldn't I come? He didn't answer right away. His eyes darted toward the man in the doorway, who gave a small nod before leaving us alone. The sound of the door clicking shut echoed through the room. Something in that sound made my stomach tighten. We ate in silence at first. The food was already plated: steak, vegetables, a glass of red wine that smelled faintly metallic. Ethan wasn't eating. He just watched me. You like it? He asked. It's good, I said, cutting a piece, though my hands were trembling. He nodded slowly. I had them make your favorite. That stopped me. How do you know what my favorite is? He smiled again, faintly. I pay attention. The wine tasted off, bitter. I set it down after one sip. He leaned forward slightly. You're not drinking. I'm fine, just tired. He studied me for a moment, then said quietly, You shouldn't lie to me, Claire. The way he said it made my throat dry. I forced a laugh. Ethan, what are you talking about? He tilted his head, still smiling. That's not my name. The air shifted then, subtle but real, like the temperature dropped a few degrees. I stared at him. What? He stood slowly, the chair scraping across the marble. You call me Ethan because that's what you were told. That's what they all call me. I took a small step back. Day. He ignored the question. I thought you were different, he said softly. You looked like her. My skin prickled. Like who? He smiled, wide, strange, sad. My wife? Something moved in the corner of the room, a faint creak, like a floorboard settling. I turned my head, but there was nothing there. When I looked back, Ethan, or whoever he was closer. His eyes were pale gray, almost colorless now, and the light caught on them in a way that made them look like glass. Why are you doing this? I whispered. He tilted his head. Do you know what I do, Claire? I shook my head. I find things, he said. Things that remind me of her. I buy them. I keep them. And sometimes, he smiled faintly, I lose track of what's mine. I stepped back, but my heel hit something soft, fabric. I glanced down. The tablecloth trailed onto the floor, hiding something underneath. When I bent slightly, I saw it. A shoe, a woman's shoe, scuffed, red dot next to it, the faintest outline of a hand. I stumbled backward, knocking over my chair. What the fuck is this? He didn't move, didn't even flinch. You shouldn't have gone looking, he said quietly. I ran. The hallway was endless, one identical room after another. Mirrors on every wall reflecting me from 100 angles. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and sharp, bouncing back at me. I didn't know where the exit was. Every door I tried was locked. The house seemed to rearrange itself, stretching out longer and longer. Claire, his voice called, calm and distant. Please stop running. You'll get lost. I kept going. At the end of the hall, I found a staircase leading up. The steps were narrow, steep. I climbed, 2 at a time, until I reached the landing. There was a door, slightly ajar. Inside darkness, I slipped through. The smell hit me first, rot and perfume. The room was filled with mannequins. They stood in rows, all wearing dresses, wigs, jewelry. Their faces were smooth, featureless, but each one had something human on it. A real bracelet, real hair, a lipstick stain on the glass lips. I covered my mouth, trying not to gag. There was a sound behind me, a faint, wet shuffle. I turned. The man in the suit from earlier stood in the doorway, holding something silver in his hand, a small remote. He pressed a button. The overhead light flickered on, and I realized they weren't mannequins. They were women, preserved, posed. Their skin was waxy, pale, their eyes sealed shut. Some of them still wore jewelry, makeup, even perfume. My knees gave out. He stepped closer, his voice soft, almost pitying. You shouldn't have come upstairs. Where's Ethan?" I whispered. He smiled faintly. "He's not the one who brings them here. He's the one who keeps them." I tried to move, but my legs wouldn't work. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small syringe, the liquid inside a cloudy white. "Please," I begged. "I won't tell anyone. Just let me go." He sighed. "They all say that." Then, from somewhere behind him, a voice said, "Enough. Ethan." The man froze. Ethan stepped into the room, his expression calm, but his eyes wild. "I told you not to bring her here." The other man lowered his head. "She found it herself." "Get out," Ethan said. He obeyed. Ethan turned toward me, his hands trembling slightly. "You weren't supposed to see this." I pressed myself against the wall, my eyes burning. "What did you do to them?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked past me, brushing his fingers over the nearest body, a woman in a red dress. "They all wanted to leave," he murmured, "but they always come back." His tone wasn't angry. It was sad, almost tender. "She looks like you," he said softly. "That's why I noticed you." I bolted. He didn't try to stop me. I made it back down the stairs, through the endless halls, until I saw the front door. I slammed into it, fumbling with the handle until it gave way. The cold night air hit my face like a slap. I ran down the driveway, barefoot now, my lungs burning. The gate was still open. When I reached the road, I didn't look back. The police didn't find anything. When I took them there the next morning, the mansion was gone. Not burned, not destroyed, just gone. The hill was empty. No house, no gate, no driveway. Just overgrown grass. They said I must have gotten lost, that I imagined it, but I know what I saw. That was 6 months ago. Last night a package arrived at my apartment. No return address, just a small velvet box. Inside was a necklace, gold, familiar. I remembered it. One of the women upstairs had been wearing it. There was a note underneath, in neat handwriting. "Dinner, tomorrow." Same place. I tore it up, flushed it down the sink, tried to forget. But when I looked out my window an hour later, I saw headlights. A black car parked on the street. It's still there now. Engine running, waiting. Sometimes I wonder if the mansion was ever real, or if it only appears for people like me. The desperate ones. The ones who want to be chosen. But I can still smell it. That mix of lavender and bleach. And I know when I close my eyes tonight, I'll see that hill again, and the lights, and him standing in the doorway, smiling, because he always finds the ones who look like her, and this time, he won't have to invite me. I already know the way back. The first thing that made me uneasy wasn't the man, it was the bank. The air inside was too cold, not just from the AC, but that sterile, frozen kind of cold that lives in old buildings with money buried in their walls. It was a private banking office downtown, the kind of place without signs or customers. Just tinted glass doors and soft carpet that muffled your steps. He was already waiting when I walked in, smiling. .com, expensive. Claire, he said, standing up. His suit was gray, perfectly fitted. You made it. The way he said it, like he'd been expecting me for much longer than I'd known him, made my stomach tighten. We'd met through an arrangement site 2 months earlier. He went by Daniel, though I don't think that was his real name. Everything about him felt slightly too practiced. The way he texted, the way he never posted photos that weren't black and white, the way he'd say things like, "You remind me of someone I used to know." He'd been generous, scarily generous. He paid off my rent for 6 months, wired money like it meant nothing, bought me clothes I hadn't even picked yet, and now he wanted to formalize things, whatever that meant. He said it would be one final transaction, just one. I sat across from him at the polished table. My reflection wavered faintly in the marble surface. There was no one else in the room, no receptionist, no banker, no guard. "I thought we'd have a teller or someone," I said. He smiled. This isn't that kind of bank. I laughed nervously. Then what kind is it? The kind that makes things disappear. He slid a sleek black folder toward me. Inside were 2 sheets of paper, a non-disclosure agreement, and a contract at the bottom of the second page. A number was printed, $250,000. Half now, he said softly. Half after. I stared at him. After what? He leaned back, the light from the ceiling catching his watch. After you finish the transaction. The room was quiet, too quiet. The ticking of the wall clock sounded muffled, like it was underwater. What exactly am I agreeing to? I asked, forcing a laugh. You're not about to traffic me or something, right? He chuckled. Of course not. Then, after a pause, think of it as transferring value. I don't understand. You don't have to. He handed me a pen. It was heavy, metal, cold. Sign both pages, he said. Then we can begin. I should have left. I should have walked out right then. But something about his voice, calm, deliberate, slow, made it hard to move. I signed the first line. My hand was trembling so badly the signature looked like a scrawl. When I reached the second page, I noticed something strange in the text. Beneath the legal jargon was a single line written in small, faded print. By signing below, I consent to the transfer of my name. I looked up. My name. He smiled faintly. Don't worry about that. It's just a formality. The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then they steadied again. He placed his phone face down on the table, as if something on it might distract him. Go ahead, he said. Finish it. I signed. The moment the pen left the paper, the air in the room seemed to shift, like pressure dropping before a storm. The silence deepened, heavy and electric. Good, he said softly. Now we can begin. He pulled a black credit card from his pocket. No numbers, no name, just a faint silver logo that I didn't recognize. He placed it in front of me. This is yours now. I blinked. What is it? Your account. He slid his own card next to it. Identical. The final transaction requires both. I swallowed. What do you mean final? He smiled without teeth. You'll see. He reached into his jacket again and pulled out a small, white device, something between a card reader and a phone charger. He plugged both cards into it and pressed a single button. The lights dimmed instantly. The air hummed. A faint static filled the room, like radio interference. The smell of ozone burned the inside of my nose. What are you doing? I whispered. He didn't answer. He just stared at me, his eyes blacker than I remembered. The device beeped once, then something inside me twisted. It wasn't pain exactly, more like pressure, like something was being pulled from under my skin, slowly, deliberately. My ears rang. My hands went cold. What is this? I gasped. He said softly. It's almost over. The edges of the room blurred. The sound of my breathing seemed to echo. My reflection in the table warped, my face stretching into something unrecognizable. Then the humming stopped. I collapsed against the chair, dizzy, disoriented. When I looked up, Daniel was smiling. He looked different, younger, healthier. The faint lines around his eyes were gone. His skin looked smoother, and my reflection looked pale, hollow, drained. What did you do? I whispered. He stood, buttoning his jacket. The transaction is complete. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like stone. My vision swam. Where's the money? I croaked. He smiled faintly. You'll see it soon. He picked up both cards, slipped one into his pocket, and left the room. The lights flickered again, and the hum of the air conditioner started back up like nothing had happened. I sat there alone, shaking, until the nausea passed. When I finally looked at the contract again, my name was gone, literally gone, erased, like the ink had been pulled clean off the page. I went home in a daze. The city felt different, quieter somehow. Even though the traffic still roared, and people still shouted on the street. Every reflection I passed, car windows, store glass, mirrors looked off, not wrong exactly, just unfamiliar. When I got home, I opened my banking app. The balance read, $250,000. Oh, I laughed, a panicked, broken sound. It was real. It had worked, for a few hours. I convinced myself it was fine, until the messages started. The first one came at 2:13 a.m., unknown number, Claire. I ignored it. 2 minutes later, you have something of mine. I stared at the screen, my throat tight. Another message followed. You signed for it. I threw my phone onto the couch and tried to sleep. But around 3 a.m., my phone lit up again, this time. A notification from my banking app. Withdrawal, $250,000. Then another message. Transaction reversed. By morning, my balance was zero. Not just the new account. All my accounts. My savings. My credit cards. Even my Venmo. Every account I'd ever opened had been wiped clean. At the bottom of every bank, email was the same. Note: account holder, unknown. I tried calling the number from the texts, but it went straight to voicemail. The recording wasn't a person's voice, it was static. Then I heard it again, that hum, faint, underneath the static. The next day, I went back to the building. The tinted glass doors were gone, replaced by a boarded-up storefront. The sign above it said for lease. When I asked the building manager, he said no private bank had ever operated there. I showed him a photo I'd taken that night, the marble table, the light fixture, Daniel's reflection across from mine. He went pale. That photo's not from here. I looked down at my phone. The picture was still there, except Daniel wasn't in it anymore. Just me sitting across from an empty chair. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every light in my apartment flickered. Every reflection distorted slightly. My phone battery drained in minutes, even when it wasn't being used. When I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror, my name wasn't there. My necklace, the one with the engraved pendant that said C. Miller, was blank, and my voice, when I said my own name out loud, came out wrong, slower, hollow. It didn't sound like me. By the third day, strangers started calling me by different names. At the coffee shop, order for Anna. At work, hey, you're new here, right? What's your name again? I'd worked there 3 years. I tried to tell them who I was, but every time, their faces went blank, like the word didn't register. The only thing that still recognized me was my phone, and even that was starting to glitch. The contacts list had one new entry, Daniel. I didn't add it. When I opened it, there was no number, just a note field that said, balance unsettled. I dropped the phone. It buzzed once, twice, then went still. When I picked it up again, the screen showed a black background with faint white text. Please insert your card. The same phrase. Repeating. Then, a moment later, or your replacement will be processed. That was 3 nights ago. Since then, I haven't slept. My lights flicker constantly. My face changes slightly every time I see it, like I'm becoming someone else. I keep hearing that low hum everywhere I go, in the elevator, under the static of the TV, even in the silence of my bedroom. Sometimes, if I listen close enough, I can hear something else beneath it. Breathing. His breathing. I've destroyed every card I own, but it doesn't matter. I woke up this morning to find a single black card on my nightstand. No name, no number. Just that same faint logo burned into the surface. Underneath it, a note written in my own handwriting. Final transaction due. I think I understand it now. He didn't steal my money. He didn't steal my identity. He transferred me. He took my name, my reflection, my records, the things that prove I exist. Now I'm the account. And somewhere out there, someone else is signing their name on a piece of paper just like I did, agreeing to transfer value. Maybe they'll get my face next. Maybe my voice. But whatever happens to me when I disappear completely, I hope they read this first, because when that man tells you it's the final transaction, it doesn't mean money, it means you. And once it starts, you can't get yourself back. You're just another account waiting to be closed.